If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What if the trauma your family has endured holds a hidden power, one that, when awakened, could transform generations to come? Today on the Enlightened Life Podcast, we're honored to welcome Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, a remarkable healer, author of the book, What's Going On with My Family, and trauma expert whose story is both heartbreaking and deeply inspiring. From a childhood marked by adversity and trauma, Dr. Bohnhoff embarked on a lifelong mission to understand how families can heal, break cycles of pain, and reclaim their hidden power. With over 35 years of experience as a registered nurse and trauma therapist, she has worked with severely traumatized children, teens, couples, and families, helping them move from survival to true healing. Through her own spiritual awakening, she discovered a profound truth. Within every wounded family lies a sacred potential waiting to be remembered. In her book, she offers a roadmap for transforming generational trauma, stepping off the merry-go-round of survival, and embracing the 7 superpowers of family to create lasting change. This conversation with Dr. Bohnhoff is about more than just healing. It's about awakening to the power that has always been within us. If you've ever felt trapped by past wounds or wondered how to break free from cycles of trauma, this episode will offer you the wisdom and tools to begin your journey. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and join us as we explore the path from adversity to abundance with Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff. Let's dive in. Hello there. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me.
Scott, what a journey. I almost need a nap listening to that introduction. Wow, there was a lot going on
boring.
there.
Is that what you're trying to tell me? I just put you to sleep.
Wow, no, it's wonderful. What a journey it has been. Yes.
I bet it has been. Can you take us back and share, maybe how some of these early experiences shaped your devotion to helping vulnerable families?
I'd love to. So, one of my earliest memories, so my family and I parachuted in, is the way I describe it, into our storyline, our timeline, and our world line, as we had planned, to explore several themes that we wanted to heal. And when I was a little one, I remember that my first impression as the oldest of 4 children was that there was a lot of energy that felt heavy. And I remember being really afraid all the time. And as I grew up, I ended up having 3 important jobs. The first was to help my mother stay healthy. The second was to help keep my father happy. And the third one was to keep my siblings safe. And so with this kind of programming and conditioning at the factory, so young, my entire world was really in this energy of survival and suffering and fear. Now, of course, everything is subconscious, right? And so as I began to grow up, I remember when I was 10, I got invited over to an overnight, and I was super excited because I wanted to take a break from my own family's energy. And what I didn't know at the time was I was stepping into a different kind of energy, a different kind of anguish, which was child trafficking. And so at that moment, I realized that the energy in my family was different than the energy of this particular experience. And so, although it took me a couple of years to navigate my way through that energy, we ended up moving out of that particular area. Of course, that imprint stayed with me. And so, from the very beginning of this journey, I really had this question, which was, what is going on with my family? And so as I became a nurse and a trauma therapist, I decided to go into the darkest parts of families' journeys with them to see if I could discover what it was that was keeping us in this particular energy of survival and suffering. And so it wasn't until the age of 57 that I hit the wall as an essential worker after the COVID pandemic. And I did something I'd never done before. to help myself heal. So I had been to therapy. I had lots of prescription medications in my system, enough to take out an elephant. At the time, I was trying to navigate my own way through these energies. And when I hit that wall, I couldn't get back up. And so I did something I'd never done before, which was to go to acupuncture. And so when I went to acupuncture, for those of you who know acupuncture, they put hundreds of pins in my body, and I didn't realize I was energy. And so it flooded my system with all kinds of things. And from that moment on, it opened up or awakened my energy system. And I had that spiritual awakening or a dream that helped me to understand that there was more going on here than what I had been programmed and conditioned to believe as a human being. But also, even in my nursing and my trauma therapy, I hadn't learned about. And so the mind, the body, and oh, here it comes, the spirit, door number 3, was the doorway that I hadn't yet understood. And so once that happened, it took me 4 years to navigate into this energy of know thyself. And then I was able to piece together this roadmap to allow the energy to move from fear into freedom. And that is as fast as I could tell kind of my story at this point, to let everyone know what I've experienced and what I've discovered, not just about myself and my family and the themes we wanted to heal, but also how to help other families do the same.
Was it difficult to reconcile what you were discovering with what you had learned as a nurse? Because this was obviously it's very different. The traditional way of healing people is not what you get with, this type of thing.
Yeah, Scott, one of the things that I thought was so fascinating was the language that we use in the medical profession, the nursing profession, psychology, therapy, or whatever. And so I was trained to speak about families and my own family as a way. So, for instance, it's not unusual to hear families referred to as broken or toxic or dysfunctional or crazy, right? It's not unusual for us to point to someone in our lives and say, well, they're a narcissist or they're an abuser or they're this or they're that, right? So in the human realm, we have a lot of polarity. We have a lot of labeling. We have a lot of story, right? And so one of the things I noticed right away is in our diagnostic codes and in the way that we are labeling people and prescribing for people and, describing people is when they come for help and support, that's an external support. And we're using this very interesting language that is disempowering. So what I discovered was, oh my goodness, we were never broken. We were never toxic and we were never dysfunctional. We had somehow believed in an idea that someone else had come up with to describe our journey without really looking within and saying, is it my idea that I am broken? And where did I pick up this idea? I think it's the idea that humanity is healing right now and all of our beautiful, brilliant, and brave families. There were 3 things that I had an idea about myself that were untrue. The first was, I am unlovable. I am unworthy, and I am not enough. Now, whose idea was that? And it certainly wasn't mine, but I certainly picked it up and put it in my pocket along the way. And I certainly had the thoughts and the words and the beliefs and emotions, feelings, and actions to support that idea. But it wasn't until I had this beautiful dream that helped me expand my understanding of the human experience and how we as souls had planned our journey, kind of like a road trip, if you will, to come in and heal the decisions we have made in fear and instead turn those decisions in the direction of freedom. And that is a very personal journey. And yet the cast characters that we chose to come in here with, families, are actually the very thing that help us to remember who we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you spent, like you said, 35 years working with these traumatized, individuals and families. What do you think, if you can even pick one, what would be the most profound lesson you've learned about the human capacity to heal?
Oh, my stars. When I see, a lot of what's coming through for me is in writing right now and in poetry. And so what I had intuitively known as a little girl and can see now is what families cannot see in themselves, which is they're already free. It's just that they have forgotten that they're free. So what is the most beautiful aspect of families? The most brilliant part of them is their radiance. In other words, all I can sense within the family is this untapped potential and radiance. So when I have had the honor of being with families who have felt so broken and so overwhelmed and so overburdened and so overscheduled, what I could sense, what I could see is the wisdom, the genius, and the resilience of a family that was having an experience that was absolutely unspeakable, absolutely unspeakable. And yet here they were on their feet, as it were, boots on the ground on this beautiful earth, still breathing, still moving, still wanting to understand what's happening. And to me, the beauty, the brilliance, the bravery of the souls of our families that have no remembrance yet as to their strength, as to their divinity, their divine nature. To me, that's what I'm most excited about, is giving them an opportunity to see a mirroring of that divine, I call it divine love in motion. They are divine love in motion, and yet they haven't remembered yet. So when I was taking care of patients who had amnesia, who had head injuries, this is what this reminds me of, is families and people and communities and societies in the world coming out of a disorientation and into a remembrance of who they truly are. And this is a natural part of evolution. So I'm just noticing that families are asking different questions. So instead of why me or who can I blame, they're saying, I wonder. So I always give them different questions, compassionate inquiry.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I wonder what this is helping us heal. I wonder what this is helping us understand. I wonder what this is helping us remember. And so once we move into a different direction of inquiry, when we ask different questions, now we can build a path into the remembrance, into the potential of a family or an individual or a couple or a community. It doesn't matter.
I'm curious, and I don't know your belief on this, so I'm going to just spring this on you and ask you. I don't know what your feeling is on past lives, but we did have someone come on the show recently and talk about healing trauma that has come from a past life. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I'm so thankful that you asked that, because as part of this spiritual awakening, my other gifts and abilities have opened up as I've asked different questions, which was, are families able to tap into their, what I call, expressions of life? So I don't have a family life. My family is life itself, right? And so these other expressions of life, as we have parachuted into other genetic and energetic family lines across dimensions, places and spaces, right? And everything is happening all at once. So as I've had an opportunity to heal in this particular line of family, biologically and energetically, how would that impact any other expressions of life that I am in this moment, past, what we call past or future, which is really all happening at once? And so what I've discovered and what's been revealed to me through dreams and visions, and I have actually been able to go in through dreams and out-of-body experiences to tap into these other expressions of life that are from my particular soul. And I noticed that the 6 of us in my own family of origin in this particular timeline are actually playing out different parts, different themes, different ideas across these dimensions. So we are a soul family hanging out together, learning about all kinds of stuff. And so as one of us heals in a timeline, it ripples through all timelines, past and future. So I have heard this 7 generations back and forward, which I think is a beautiful idea. And human beings love to have a lot of, linearity and all of that. What I've discovered is it's infinite. So it's an infinite ripple. of healing
Mhm.
through all expressions of life, this particular human family, but also throughout all that is. So, our one sacred family, to expand that idea, is family that are galactic, family that are celestial, right? And so we are one sacred family. And I don't just believe in past lives, I've experienced and I know that that feels and resonates as truth for me. And what I've noticed in my own family and other families that I've shared the information with, that they will come and share with me that as they've healed a certain theme, a niece would call, a nephew would call. There are other parts of the family that are like, you're never going to believe what happened. And I'll go, oh, yeah, I would, because we're rippling in this quantum. Our families are quantum in nature. And so this is the beauty of the holistic mind, body, and spirit. And so I learned a lot in my scientific and professional life that was very valuable as stepping stones. And what I've done now is saying that's not right or wrong. It's just part of the beautiful kaleidoscope of holistic options that we have to navigate a family all the way through. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because a lot of people don't buy into that, but I really feel like there's something to be said, and I really sort of believe that time is not linear anyway. I feel like it's just sort of stacked upon. So, we're kind of living it maybe at the same time somewhere else that it just gets transferred over. It's just a very fascinating thought. If you don't mind, I'd like to circle over to the cycle of trauma and how people can break that. You've talked about the merry-go-round of survival, and what does that look like to you, or in families, and how can someone begin to step off?
And that's an interesting point too, Scott, because initially when I noticed this pattern, I thought for sure families were going to need to step off that merry-go-round. But what I realized is because everything works in cycles and patterns at a universal level, we weren't going to move off the merry-go-round, we were going to transform it. So let me share this with you. The merry-go-round of survival starts with the secrets in families. So, what happens in families stays in families. When we hold secrets, we move into silence about those secrets. And in that silence, we hold tremendous amounts of shame. And in that shame is the idea, I am broken beyond repair. From shame, we move to the shadows. These are the parts of ourselves that we deny or disown, or we try and diminish in some way. So the shadows make an appearance. Then we do this dance of sabotage. So not just as individuals, but as a family, we have a tendency to sabotage ourselves because we have moved through the secrets, the silence, the shame, the shadows, and now we sabotage. Why? Because we do not feel worthy of abundance. From the sabotage, we move into status quo. So our families get into this space of comfort zone. So even if the routine is self-neglecting or self-harmful for families, we're familiar with that. And it's the devil, as it were, right? And so if there's a cycle within your family, and even though you don't prefer it, the status quo holds firm because it's all that you've known. And then the last, of course, is the suffering. So the merry-go-round of survival is secrets, silence, shame, shadows, sabotage, status quo, and suffering. And when I noticed this pattern, not just within myself and my own family, and then after the dream, this all was coming in as I'm like, why am I seeing a merry-go-round? What is that about? And so, all these beautiful downloads came through and I started to notice the patterns. I realized that I and my family were addicted to suffering itself. And this was a big aha moment. So if our mind is wired for suffering and our biology is fight or flight and the chemistry of our body is always on alert, right? Then we're already predisposed to suffering. It's all that we've known. And we become addicted to that suffering. And then for me, for sure, I had, the addictions of Patron, pastries, and purchases, that tried to kind of keep me stable along with medication, all kinds of other stuff, right? To hold this merry-go-round in place. And then I realized as I was moving through my own, what I call the hero's journey that I talk about in the book, hero is honoring the energy of remembered oneness, by the way, hero. I realized that for every part of the survival merry-go-round, I started to notice the merry-go-round of spirit. And so what I realized was I wasn't stepping off the merry-go-round, I was transforming. So for instance, instead of secrets, what would be happening is there would be sharing. Oh, instead of silence, sitting in silence and it just being like, oh, this feels heavy, there would be a sense of serenity. Instead of shame, I started to feel, as I was healing and uncovering, I started to feel a sense of spaciousness within myself and in the world. Instead of shadows, I started to notice the magic of synchronicity in my life. Oh, now that's interesting. Sabotage. I realized instead of spending energy on sabotage, once I started to notice that pattern within myself and my family, I decided to replace it with service to others. Status quo, staying stuck in status quo. I noticed when I was doing it and I said, okay, let's be spontaneous. So I replaced it with spontaneity. And the last of suffering, I realized I was able to transform that into sovereignty. So what I recognized was that the merry-go-round of survival is a very important part of the journey to know who we are not. So we could discover, remember, and awaken and celebrate to who we truly are, which is this beautiful cycle. So moving from suffering to sovereignty, fear to freedom. And so once I found a way through, I realized that families that are adrift in a sea of subconscious distractions and drama and dualities, they just needed an opportunity to wonder, is this it? Is this all that there is? And the answer to that is no way. We did not come down here to stay in the merry-go-round of survival. What we said was, we're going to come in and we're going to heal the trauma, unlock our hidden power of resilience, wisdom, and genius that we have amassed across lifetimes with one another. And we're going to remember what is sacred. And so the word sacred left the building somewhere. I don't know where that word went, but for me, sacred is worthy of unconditional love, devotion, and reverence, which we are all sacred. All emotions are sacred. The heavier energies are sacred. The lighter energy, the whole thing is sacred, worthy of unconditional love. And so it really is just a matter of slowing the momentum of this merry-go-round of survival, coming to a point of neutral or curiosity and courage, and then building momentum toward willingness, resilience, receptivity, joy. And now we're building momentum for the life as we all co-create our own reality. And the minute I understood that I had to own my own shift, which is the sacred healing of individual and family trauma, I started to monitor very closely every thought that I think, every word that I speak, every belief that I hold, every emotion I feel, and every action I take. Is it in fear or freedom? And so once I understood that and started to take inspired action, I found my way. And so is some of my family, not all, towards freedom. And it is a magical experience working with energy and to help families in an energetic quantum way. It's much faster than 25 years of therapy. We can't get families in a room. I mean, there's so much going on with that, right? So it's wonderful to be able to have found this way through in this particular expression of life.
And is this something that people, when we talk about get through, that they get through, emerge, and then they're okay? Or is this something people have to work on their entire lives?
So again, as someone who's a recovering workaholic, so anytime I hear the word work, right, I'm thinking, oh, I'm in. So life in the fast lane, efforting, work, as opposed to life in the flow lane. So here's what I've discovered and want to give as encouragement to the listeners that are here. When joy enters your energy field, you begin to notice a sense of lift, a sense of effortlessness. So there is no working through potentially. What I would say is that there is an unfolding that is eternal. So the process of becoming the greatest expression of love you have ever known is an eternal dance. It's the destination, we're not really going to land anywhere in the end. The journey itself Every moment that we have is the destination. Being in the present moment is the destination. So it is unfolding. So for my whole life, I was molding or was molded as a child into certain boxes and limiting beliefs and all of that. So what I see happening for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren now, I am a grandmother now, is we are unfolding. We are allowing the natural flow of who we truly are, which is divine love and motion, to unfold naturally rather than this myth of normal around these older paradigms and ideas about family. Families will move through this idea of hierarchy to one circular consciousness, which means a new baby comes in. We got a parent, we got a grandparent, we got a niece, we got a nephew, we got an aunt. Everybody there is a soul, divine love and motion with different gifts and all of that. And so we see each other as interconnected, not separate.
Right,
So this
right.
idea of the parents know and the children don't, and all this, whatever all that is, and throughout all the systems of education and healthcare and all that, we are moving now in a direction of unity, harmony, abundance, which means we'll be seeing and reimagining our families in that way.
Yeah. So for listeners who are, listening to you and saying, some of this resonates with me. I feel like, I've been through trauma. Maybe I wasn't beaten, maybe, but there's other we all have something, right? So what are some of the first steps that people can take to break these cycles? Where do you start?
Well, for me, I started with 2 words. I wonder. I wonder if my family is more than they appear to be. I wonder if I am more than I appear to be. I wonder if there's something bigger going on here
Right.
than what I understand right now. So the very first step was curiosity. Once I surrendered to the flow of life, and I think this is an important point too, because I couldn't figure out where the fear was coming from initially. Fear in this particular context is the familiar energy aligned with resistance. What was I resisting exactly? Well, from the very beginning, I didn't feel that life itself had my back. In other words, I didn't trust in life. I didn't trust in light. I didn't trust in joy. I didn't trust in any of that. And so the first relationship that I had to understand to heal was with life itself, to trust that life was happening for me, not to me, for me. And once I really experienced that, I then began asking through curiosity questions. And I said, as a scientist, I was like, you're going to have to show me this craziness I'm having with these dreams. If it's quantum, if I have a field and legions of light, family and spirit guides and all that kind of stuff that are really helping me, you better show me something, because otherwise the 5 senses human being that I am as a scientist, no, you're not going to convince me of it. So the first step was the surrender and the healing of my relationship to life itself. Then it was the curiosity, asking open-ended questions about I wonder. So rather than blaming and why me and all of that, so moving out of a victim mentality, a victim energy, then the next step was I had to sit with myself and write down every belief I had about my health, my financial well-being, and my relationship to myself, my family, humanity, and the natural world. And as I wrote down all the beliefs that I could think of about those subjects, I began to look at them, and then I said, do I really believe that? Is that my belief? Or is that the belief of a parent or a teacher or a pastor or the government or whoever? And once I looked at all the beliefs I had, there wasn't one of them that I had that was empowering. And
Right.
so I rebuilt my belief system completely. And once I rebuilt my own individual belief system, oxygen mask on first, I did the same thing with my family beliefs. What is happening with my family's health? What is happening with my family's finances? What's happening with, okay. And so then I started believing. So I was raised in the wait till your father gets home era, or children are to be seen and not heard, for
Right.
instance. Those are just examples. And so what do I believe now? Those were programmed beliefs. So I just restored my belief system And then I started taking action. And then the last thing I would say to your listeners that I noticed as my imagination, my inspiration, my intuition came back online because I had buried those really young was I started playing a game in my mind with that inner critic. And so if I noticed that a thought would come by that was disempowering, I would do something. You remember how, Scott, we were in school and they taught us how to, if someone was on fire, what do? We stop, drop, and roll, right? That's what we learned. So I decided I would stop. If I was feeling that or noticing that in my life, I would stop and be still. I would drop into 3 breaths and I would be in the moment. And what I noticed was I had a lot of self-neglecting, self-sabotaging, self-destructive things going on in my life that were completely subconscious. And when I would stop, drop, and be, it gave me a moment to breathe and to be with that particular energy and just ask a simple question, which was, how can I set you free? Because in the end, all of the energy of the shadow and the inner child and all this beautiful energy, what was shared with me from my own energy was, could you free us already? Could you just move us through your body? Could you please just let us go back into pure potential? What is happening here? So in the end, I realized all those thoughts and words and blah, 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 they were clues. So I was playing a game of Clue with myself. And overall, what I think we're all doing on this beautiful earth right now is we are playing a game of hide and go seek. And so all we're doing is we are discovering and remembering who we truly are through our own unique, beautiful personalities and families and communities and societies. And for me, what I notice in the world that's happening is we're not going to heck in a handbasket. We're actually healing. This is what natural evolution looks like. And there is truly nothing to be afraid of. We are just letting go all of the fear that we may have dropped in here. Well, we've been here for a long, long time. And we are transforming that fear into freedom.
Beautiful. So, on that note too, you've talked about the 7 superpowers of the family. And can you share what they are?
Sure.
And how they can be harnessed for transformation? I don't think
Right.
any of us feel like we have any kind of superpower whatsoever. So, and when you think about it as a family, it's to me, that's huge.
Yeah. And that's where I think families can find themselves in an overwhelm, overburden, overscheduled kind of thing. So it almost causes paralysis of family healing, I notice, when people start to think about, well, my family's not going to go for this, or, how am I going to talk to my mother about this, or whatever all that is. And the good news about this is that without saying a word to anyone in those 4 years, just knowing thyself, if you think of yourself as a wireless hotspot, broadcasting a vibration. So every family thing I went into, I was vibrating in more healing, more joy, more willingness, more curiosity, right? And nobody could put their finger on what was going on there because I didn't tell anyone anything. But the way that energy moves is that it was hitting everyone's subconscious. And because I wasn't playing the role of the oldest daughter in these codependent relationships anymore, that entire theater, if you will, that entire drama could no longer continue. And so I realized and had a dream about these superpowers, because what the world would have families believe is they don't have the power to heal. And that's completely untrue. Families heal themselves from the inside. As we heal ourselves individually, families have the power to heal all of their trauma, unlock all their power. So here are the 7 superpowers that I'm glad you asked me about this. I'm excited to talk about. So the very first superpower that comes online is belief. When families turn their attention into belief, I heard Michael Beckwith say, we've got intention deficit disorder. Everybody's so busy. So when families believe that they can heal, when they have a belief that they'll just go in, just curious, can we heal? Can we heal ourselves? Let's just be curious. I believe it's possible that we can heal. That's the first superpower, belief. The second is discovery. Now, our families can create within their own days, 24/7, they can discover something new about themselves as an individual and as a family that they love. So it's just a matter of setting an intention. Let's discover something new about ourselves today. What do I love? I love sunflowers. Woo! And let's say my mother finds out that she loves some other kind of gardening, and somebody else finds out they like. Well, once you start to discover, you now begin to go into exploring how you can take those discoveries to then integrate them, navigate them, transform all of this new discovery, new exploration, new navigation into co-creating, right? So the 7 superpowers are the belief, the discovery, the exploration, the integration, the navigation, the transformation, and the co-creation. So what I didn't understand, what my family didn't understand, was that we're co-creating our reality in an energy of fear. And when we were doing that as an individual and collectively, well, quantum physics and the universal laws say the universe doesn't speak human. It only speaks energy. So what our family was saying, bring on more fear, baby. We want to master fear. Instead, when families use their superpowers intentionally with attention and inspired action, they begin now to co-create in freedom. And what is returning to them is a sense of abundance, a sense of freedom. And that's where this merry-go-round of survival transforms into the merry-go-round of spirit. And so we're using our intention and attention and inspired action to co-create a reality for ourselves and our families that are our natural state, that are our natural birthright. It is our birthright to be free. It's our birthright to feel joy. It's our birthright to feel loved and understood as the unique expression of life that we are. And so we are in what I call a sacred transition in our world. And it is beautiful. It's also very busy. It can also feel very turbulent. And yet we can still bring moments of higher vibration into it to ease that pathway. In other words, we can double down on the fear, or we can begin to know that with just a turn of our ideas, if I was to say the fast pass to families healing, what that energy is joy, which is why I created a free guide to the 7-day hunt for joy through the lens of the methodology that I discovered that helped me heal, has helped my family, parts of my family heal. Not everybody's on board, but that's okay, right? Is look to the stars. So stillness, thankfulness, affirmations, reflection, and showing up for ourselves, our family, humanity, and the natural world. I just intuitively moved myself through that over 4 years and noticed that pattern was able to lift me into a clearer ability to see the landscape and where I was still in fear and where I was moving into freedom. And it took some time just to keep balancing like a teeter-totter until now I live in a state of freedom, heaven on earth. I can see and feel when something dances across my field of awareness that seems heavy. I know immediately I'm just refining my energy, that there's just something else that I need to heal within myself and in the family unit. And so I just see it as a curious dance of energy and healing.
Where can they get that guide?
So for families interested, you just go to onesacredfamily, all one word, .com. And it's at the very, very first button, join the Hunt for Joy Challenge. You just put that on your refrigerator because that's where a lot of the stuff is in families. Just refrigerate it. And you just follow the 30-day or 7-day. I think this one's a 7-day. And for 7 days, if you do the look to the stars and you noticed a lift and you notice kind of shifting, then you can see that you can integrate that through the super. So if you believe that the 7-day challenge will help, you begin to discover the things that you do and do not like about it. You explore it, you integrate it, you navigate it, you transform, you co-create. By the time that week is over, you'll notice that you're breathing just a little bit easier. All the distractions aren't hitting you as hard. The dramas, you're like, no, thank you. The whole us versus them, me versus you, you're right, I'm wrong, somebody's to blame. All of that begins to simmer down in this state of joy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's magical. But luckily, spirituality and science and quantum physics and all of this is metaphysics. It's actually all dancing closer and closer together. So we do have science now that is supporting why joy would be able to help families stabilize energetically and then move into freedom. So there's plenty of science around it. But what I noticed for myself was there wasn't anyone speaking about it in the way that I am as a family therapist related to the quantum family. That's a completely new thing. And so I believe, and I know for a fact, that's the mission of this expression of life, is for me to help families remember and awaken to who they truly are and to do it with as much ease and grace as possible.
So we've only got a minute left, but I wanted to just ask if you could have the listeners take one thing away from the conversation we've had today, what might that be?
It would be that you and your family are divine love in motion, transitioning from amnesia into awakening, which is a natural part of this journey. And I kind of see families as the Navy SEALs of the universe, that we came here to heal, unlock, and remember. And for not one moment are you anything other than divine love. Even if you don't remember that, just know that you are, and you're working your way through the remembrance and awakening process. You've got this. You chose your family for a reason, and that reason is to heal.
I think that is beautiful, and that is a beautiful place to end this conversation. I am going to put your information in the description. So wherever you're hearing this, whether it's Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, you'll be able to have doctor's information. If people want to reach out to you, they can there. So as we wrap up this powerful conversation with Dr. Kelly Bohnhoff, I hope you're walking away with a deeper understanding of the hidden strength within trauma and the incredible potential for healing within every family. Dr. Kelly's work reminds us that no matter where we come from or what we've been through, transformation is possible. By embracing stillness, gratitude, and presence, we can break free from generational cycles and step into a future of deeper connection and love. If you're ready to take the next step on your healing journey, be sure to check out her new book, What's Going On With My Family, a roadmap for healing trauma, unlocking your hidden power, and remembering what is sacred. Also, don't forget her website is onesacredfamily.com. All one word, that's O-N-E, spelled out, onesacredfamily.com, to explore some transformative materials, find out about her book, and get that free guide that she's been talking about. Also, while you're online, please don't forget to stop by my website, mediumscottallen.com, to sign up for my newsletter, Soul Awakenings, or to schedule a private reading. I'd love to connect with you personally and support you on your path. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue these powerful conversations. Thank you for joining us today on the Enlightened Life Podcast. Until next time, remember that healing begins the moment you choose to show up. Now go on living your best enlightened life. I'm Scott Allen. We'll see you next time.